Trapping plays a very important role in modern-day wildlife management. Professional wildlife biologists monitor fur-bearer populations to maintain a healthy and sustainable harvest of this important, renewable natural resource. Trapping provides recreation and income for licensed trappers across this country. The Fur Shed Series, brought to you by Who's Your Trapper Outdoors. Who's Your Trapper Supply, Leatherwood Creek Trapping Scents, HTS Productions, Who's Your Trapper Deer Scents, and Leatherwood Wildlife Art.
Okay, it's been a while since we've done a Fur Shed show, and it's been a long while since I started on this fleshing beam. And I'd cut the log back in late spring, split it in half. It's a piece of ash. All the ash trees around here are dying from emerald ash borer. So anyways, I had split it in half, and we'd shown that. I took the bark off and used a draw knife to take the bark off, sanded it, and then it had some blemishes in the beam, which were not a real big deal because we're actually putting the skin on top of the beam. We're not putting the beam inside the skin. So I took some Bondo and filled in those bad areas and then sanded that off. If I haven't fleshed the skin on it yet, so if I find some areas that I feel are maybe just a little bit too rough or I have some issues, then I'll go back in with some more Bondo and sand that a little bit more smooth it out. But what I did is I built 2x6 frame on the back and on the front. One thing that I have seen a lot of people do, and in my view, it's pretty. It'll make your fleshing a lot easier, and it'll be a lot easier on you. Is if you have this back end about 12 inches off the ground. I've seen a lot of fleshing beams where the back end is actually on the ground. This part would be touching the ground, and so the angle of the beam's a lot steeper. So that's just creating you to bend over further, and it's harder on your back. So if you got a lot of fleshing to do. This way you could stand at this fleshing beam all day long, which I did years ago when I was buying fur. So the back end's about 12 inches off the ground, and then the front end is waist high. So that you want it basically right here, so you're not having to bend over very far. You can pull your skin up and lean against it. So that's what I did, and then I always put a couple 2x4s right here. I mean, this is pretty crude, but it's good and sturdy. A couple 2x4s right here that you can put your fleshing knife on, when you're changing skins or whatever. So it just rests right there. And anyways, that's it. All right, to put this together, I've got a 2x6 block at the top and one at the bottom. The one at the top has got to allow for the legs to come down and still be within the edge of the beam. And then the one at the bottom that the beam rests on can go outside the beam, which will give you a little more stability. So when you fit the legs on there, it's wider. Found that a milk crate was 12 inches tall, so that I just based the bottom of the beam off of that to get the angle correct on the leg support. So what I did then is I just put the 2x6 down that needed to be there for the base, put the 2x6 alongside it, and that way I just drew my angle. It's a lot easier to do that than to try to actually guess what the angle might be because of the height. And then just traced it with a pencil, and then it was correct, and then it was the same on both sides. You can see here I've got the legs cut and attached, screwed them on with drywall screws, and then the 2x6 would then go on those two legs right there. There you can see the fully attached bottom all ready to go. None of this is written in stone, so you can kind of vary it to however you want to make it, but the whole thing is a good, stable, well-supported fleshing beam that's not going to move around and flex and will take all that pressure that you're going to put on it. Here's the completed base part, 12 inches off the ground, legs in place. You can see this is really scientific. I did find that a folding chair was the correct height for my height in terms of the support of the front end, and then I did the front exactly like I did the back
in terms of just holding a 2x6 up, taking a pencil, drawing the angle, cutting it, and then just putting it in place. Like I said, that worked really well. Just instead of trying to figure out what the actual angle was, and being that the bottom of the beam was not completely flat, it was a little bit rough because of the split, and I didn't take a die grinder to it or anything like that to smooth that out. That gave me, with doing the angle like that, there was a little bit of variation, so that's how I did it, and it worked out very well. And I've built several of these over the years, and that's the method I've always used. So, anyways, that's kind of how to put it together.
I've seen the thing about fleshing beams is this is up against the wall, so it's not going to slide, and it's really good and sturdy, so that it's not going to move or sway or anything like that when you're fleshing, and that's really important to have that thing just really solid. I've seen guys have fleshing beams hanging from chains and all kinds of silly stuff, and you're just working against yourself essentially. When you got that beam moving, then you got to compensate for the beam movement in addition to trying to flesh the skin. So it's really important to have these good and solid, where they're not moving and rocking and all kinds of stuff. So put a little nail here on the edge, at the end of the beam to hold the nose of a coon or whatever. And this we can really flesh anything on here but muskrats. You can even flesh mink on here. So we'll get a muskrat beam set up here shortly and show you that when we do. We don't put any fur up until we're done trapping, so it'll be like February, March before we actually start putting up fur, and then we'll ship it to NAF and just let it ride on the auction. It's more efficient in terms of our time, running heat in here, that kind of thing, to get that fur put up all kind of in one shot. If we get a window in January where the weather's really nasty or whatever, and we're between trips or whatever, we'll probably put some up then. So maybe we can hit an earlier auction with some of it. But and I do normally think that over the years the auctions that are late winter, early spring are probably better than the ones that are during the summer. So that's my opinion. That's not fact, but that's my opinion and based on just years of looking at it. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at in here. Since the last First Shed series, I built another rack here for the fleshing knives. It's got additional knife slots back here in the back, and comb and that kind of thing. Obviously, it's real important to have your fur combed out before you flesh it, so that you don't cut any holes. Fleshing knives got a Necker and a Weeby, and we put a TV up yet. So far, but haven't got a shelf made for the DVD player. But anyways, that's kind of where we're at, and with the fleshing beam. So. We'll see you next time.